Alright, so in this video we are going to use some scales to find actual measurements. So for example 1, so Braden proposes an idea to install a basketball court at Keith Valley. Mr. Kircher tells Braden that the plan will work. It'll be approved if it fits on the empty lot, right, which is 25 by 75 feet. So we have to use this scale, right, so obviously he has a drawing that's measured in inches, and we want to use this scale to figure out what the actual dimensions of the real basketball court would be. So we can do this one of two ways. I'm going to show you both. One of the ways we could start solving this is using a ratio table. So we know that we're going to be comparing inches to feet, right? We're starting with inches in our diagram, and we want to end with feet. So they give us a scale, and they tell us 1 inch is equal to 15 feet. So we can add that in as our first row on our ratio table. And we know, well, we would like to find how many feet go with 1 foot, 1 2/3 foot, right? And we want to find this missing value. Okay, so you might remember back from Unit 1, it was a long time ago, but we just have to use multiplication. So how do you get from 1 to 1 2/3? Well, you multiply by 1 2/3. So if you do that to the left for inches, you have to do the same thing on the right for feet. So times 1 2/3. All right, and if we do that, so 15 times 1 2/3, you should get an answer of 25 feet for this. So, all right, whoops, so 25 feet. So that is one way that you could find a missing value as like in terms of feet. But for the other side, for the 2-inch side, we're going to use something different. We're going to use a proportion. So we know that this one is 2 inches. So same thing, they give us our scale. We know that 1 inch is related to 15 feet, right? There's our scale. And that should be equal to another fraction. We know the value of 2 inches, and we're trying to figure out how many feet that goes with. So you could set up a proportion, right? 2 fractions equal to each other. It's really the same thing because you have to think, well, how do you get from 1 inch to 2 inches? Well, you multiply by 2. So you have to do the same change to the bottom. So if you do 15 times 2, that's going to give you a length of 30 feet. Okay, so just from these two ways, the dimensions of the plan would be 25 feet by 30 feet. So this would definitely fit in the open lot at Keith Valley, so that would be good. Okay, so if we look at the second example, so we have this triangle that's going to be used on a banner. They show it in the scaled form, right, in inches, and we want to do the same thing that we did on the last slide and figure out what the dimensions would be in terms of feet. So for the ones that say 5 inches, I'm going to do another ratio table. So again, same thing, we're comparing inches and feet. We know that our scale, 1 inch, is worth 1.5 feet. And the inch value that they give us is 5. And we want to think about which feet value goes with that. So to get from 1 to 5, you have to multiply by 5. So we have to do the same thing on the other side. So that's going to be equivalent to 7.5 feet. Okay, and then for the bottom, for the one that says 6 inches, we are going to do a proportion just to see how that would work out. So again, we know our scale is 1 inch is worth 1.5 feet. And that should be equal to another fraction. Our inches that we know are 6, and we're trying to figure out how many feet go with that. Okay, so same thing. We know from 1 inch to 6 inches, we have to multiply by 6. So you have to do the same thing to the denominator of those fractions. If you do that, that's going to give you a value of 9 feet. Okay, so what it really wants is the perimeter of our actual triangle. So if we do this, right, we know that the last one we found with the proportion told us the bottom, right, in red was going to be worth 9 feet. And then the first thing we did with the ratio table told us the left and the right would both be 7.5 feet. So we can put that in. And then just remember, perimeter means the total of all of the sides. If you add all of them up, you would get 24 feet. So that's one way you could do it. You could also, maybe you can go back and look at this again. You could have added up all of your sides from the original triangle, got your perimeter for that one, and then used your scale. That would have gotten you the same answer, just a different approach. Okay, the last one we're going to look at. So Mrs. DeLeandro's projector enlarges her computer screen by 325%. On her computer, the screen is 8.5 inches long. We want to think about how wide the actual image on her big projector would be. So it says it enlarges it by 325%. So that would be 325 over 100. That is our scale factor. So to find the length of the actual image, you take your 8.5 inches and multiply it by your scale factor. So by 325 over 100. And if you put that in your calculator, it'll give you a decimal, but it is 27.625. So that's how long her screen would be in inches on her big whiteboard in the front. So that's just a little review of scale factor. So hopefully this video helped. You can see why using scales really does help in a lot of practical things to find real measurements. So things that would be difficult to measure in real life, right? You could use a scale to get those dimensions. So thank you for watching, and hopefully this helped.